Das Ligna-Journal vom 6. Mai 2013. Live von der Ligna zum Thema Holz der Ölpalme. Doch zu gebrauchen?
Welcome to the Ligna Journal. Every day we are going to be, during the Ligna presenting at 11 o'clock, one topic and look at it from different aspects and discuss it. I am glad to welcome you here, and I'm looking forward to a very exciting experts group where we are going to talk about oil palm wood. Is it any use? Right at the start, I'm very happy to welcome an expert here at the studio, Professor Arno Frühwart from the University of Hamburg. He's been dealing with this topic for a long time with the oil palm, and he's been evaluating studies that have just been published. There are different topics we would like to look at today. Why has the topic oil palm and Ligna, why do they have something in common? Well, wood is what they have in common. The Ligna deals with wood and wood processing machines, woodworking, and the wood from the oil palm is something that is very important for the future, and it's going to be very important. And that is why it is today a topic for the Ligna, and I'm sure it will accompany the Ligna in the next years and even decades. The reserves for oil palm wood are extraordinarily high, and we will be talking about that. And here we can see a technological future potential. There are many discussions, I've already said that in the past, but even now, ecological and social nature, there are different aspects that have to be taken into consideration. Which are these? Well, if we talk about these aspects, we often talk about socio-economic aspects. What we mean are workplaces, of course, but also economic development. Both is tightly connected to the use of oil palm wood. Here we're talking about amounts of the millions of cubic meters. We'll be talking about that more in detail. And it can be up to more than 1 million workplaces in these countries, for example, in Southeast Asia. And also the ecological aspects are, of course, very important. Oil palm plantations are made because of the oil. We do use this oil in different ways. And now we have found out that this wood is just lying to waste. And it's very important to use this wood to work against the negative environmental effects this has. Of course, we're going to be talking about the chances that the wood from the oil palm brings. But what kind of material is that wood? Well, it's a very special material, I would like to say. It's actually a kind of wood that is a highly engineerable material. Maybe I can show this on the material here. I made this model last night, actually. It's normal wood. Normal wood consists of different fibres and tissues. This oil palm wood is only made out of 2 different fibres. One is very thin and not very stable. The other one is very thick and very, very dense. And these are both connected like armoured plastic or steel concrete. And that is the problem. It is really, really solid in the longitudinal direction, but in horizontally it's very, very flexible. So it's a special problem when I'm trying to process the wood. If I want to cut it, and if the blade comes onto this hard fibre, then that squeezes the wood. But if I take the blade away, then it bounces back, and that gives a rough surface. So it's a technological challenge for working on this wood. That's something very special, and especially for the Ligna. Well, we'd like to talk about that in a minute in our expert round, but before, we would like to show you a few pictures. What kind of extensions or what kind of impact is this going to have in Southeast Asia? In foods and the biochemical sector and in energy. Oil palm is used everywhere. There were 15 million hectares of land used for oil palm plantations in 2010, according to the UN Food and Agriculture Association. By 2012, the amount of oil palm tree plantations has risen to 20 million hectares. Per hectare, 130 to 150 plants are planted. The leading oil palm tree producers are Asia and Indonesia. The potential for further usage is very, very high. There are about 15 million hectares of oil palm tree plantations in Asia alone. There is a wood volume of up to 80 million cubic meters per year. This resource should be used effectively, shouldn't it? That is exactly our topic that we are discussing today here in our expert round. I am very happy to have high-quality guests here with us here at the first journal here at the Ligna. On the one hand here, Dr. Stefan Möhringer, welcome. He is Managing Director in the fourth generation at the company Möhringer. His company makes complete systems for sawmills and wood processing. Dr. Otto Leibner here, Managing Director at Wein Concepts, System Solutions for the woodworking industry. Dr. Gernot van Haas, welcome, leader of development at Dieffenbacher. Dieffenbacher produces sites for the board industry. And similar with the plants by Dr. Michael Schöner, leader of research and development at Siebenkamp. Welcome to this round. Before we start the discussion, I would like, first of all, to get a statement from you. Dr. Möhringer, from your opinion, from your experience, we've already had some information on the material of the wood. How easy is it to use a palm tree in a sawmill? Well, as you said, it's got a different, it has different features, it has a different fibre, a very soft structure, so there's very low resistance when I cut it. And the trunk also has very big differences in its density, depending on the length. The palm can be quite humid, but also very dry. So there are very different situations for the material. And so, of course, there's also the question of logistics. You know, how do I get the material? What kind of amounts can I have? How many can I cut? And, of course, it rots very quickly. And so we need to have a usable product here as well. So there are many developments we have to take into consideration here. Yes, well, we will talk about that later. Dr. Leibner, in your opinion, the solid wood production, does that fit with the oil palm wood? Yes, of course. The oil palm wood has a very difficult structure for processing, as my predecessor already said, but it is processable with tools. But with the oil palm wood, we have to make sure that we don't go for the standard European products. We have to see that we generate a product, maybe a hybrid product, with different boards, so with constructive wood construction, so that the product will get a higher quality. So solid wood, of course, one topic here at the Ligna. Another one is fibre and particle wood production. Dr. van Haas, what is it like in your area? Well, we have a particle board system with the fruits. Boards are produced where this is the fruits from the oil palm are actually embedded. There are continuous systems that mix the trunk and the fruit is chipped, and that is mixed together, and up to 20% added to the wood, and the attributes are the same. But if you want to use 100%, you really have to go to other measures to have it the same kind of quality as wood. What is your experience? I can only confirm that. We've put a lot of work into it. There are always projects I can show you. Mr. van Haas said, as with the mixture, it looks like a board. This is a particle board, 100% made of palm leftovers. And this is possible. It can all be dealt with ecologically. But what we've found There isn't really much trust because it is just mixed in. But for very big projects, as Mr. Möhringer said, the logistics are a bit of a problem. You have to have large amounts and the stuff drops very quickly and you have to get that all together, and that's very difficult. We had invited a fifth guest. We would have liked to have had him here with me or with us, but that it wasn't possible. He's always on the run. Professor Matan from the University of Balalak. We reached him, not in Thailand, but in Vancouver, in Canada. My colleague managed to talk to him via Skype and was able to ask him about the oil palm.
Hello, Mr. Matan. Can you give us a short insight of the oil palm wood situation in Asia?
At the moment, there are a lot of biomass left in the plantation area because the oil palm, normally they use the oil, they plant it for oil. And after about 25 or 30 years of it, they have to fall it down because of the very difficult to reach the fruit. And also the yield of the fruit is very low. And each year there are a lot of biomass left in the field that haven't been used so far. We could estimate that in this year it's about 80 million cubic meter of the wood left in the plantation area. So this wood can be used in the future as a product.
Why is the wood industry not engaged in the same way as in the rubber wood business?
Right. For rubber wood, it's a hardwood. So normally you can use the conventional processing line, and you can adapt that. You can use that technology to process it. For example, the sawmill, you can use the sawmill technology that has been used for softwood or hardwood for a long time. Or particle board, you can use the particle board, the line that has been used in the conventional for many years, and you can directly apply to rubber wood. But for oil palm, people have tried to use the conventional line, but the yield is really low. It's only 20 to 30%. And the reason for that, because the structure is totally different. For example, I would like to go into detail a little bit. Because the structure of the oil palm consists of two tissue. The first one we call the fiber. The fiber is very strong, very stiff, and it's surrounded by very soft tissue of the matrix we call the parenchyma. So you can imagine that you have to cut something like the steel that embedded within the polymer foam. So when you cut it, it's very difficult to have a very good surface finishing. And also the drying of this wood is also very difficult because the moisture content is very high, up to about 400 to 500%.
Could this oil palm trunks lead to reduced pressure on tropical forests?
Yeah, definitely. And actually, we should do this because many people have said that oil palm plantation has destroyed the tropical forest. And actually, we should use this damage to limit the damage of the oil palm plantation. So if we can use the wood, because this wood is already planted anyway, and it is a byproduct. If we can use this wood to substitute the wood that has been cut down from the tropical plantation, then it will limit the damage that will be occur in the future. So it's really good for the environmental as well. And this wood is, you can consider it as a carbon sink.
Mr. Matan, do you have any further information for us in Germany?
I think this is a good challenge for everybody. And actually, not only people in Southeast Asia, but I believe that people around the world should come to this and should contribute, try to utilize this oil palm wood. Because at the moment, there are a lot of the biomass has been left in the field. And it's just leave it like that and then it's disappear. For example, and this, we should, as a human, we should try to utilize it. That is very important. So I encourage everybody to come to this.
Mr. Matan, thank you very much for this interview.
in Vancouver haben wir ihn per Skype erreicht. Vielen Dank auch natürlich auch.
So our colleague just talked to Professor Matan Skype, and thank you also to our expert round. Professor Fruwald, you talked about a study at the beginning here that was evaluated by the VDMA. What are the big problem areas? What are the solutions? Can this expert talk about here that can bring us further?
Ja, ein ganz großes Thema.
Well, a big topic. We would actually need far longer here because there's a lot of work ahead of us there. Maybe we should start with what Mr. Matan said. There are huge areas. We have to imagine in the world it's about 20 million hectare, double as much as German forest approximately, and these are huge amounts that are available. Now, if we look, what kind of logistics, as it was always already talked about, we'll talk about that again, all the logistics, we have a big advantage. Plantation surfaces that are accessible, and after 25 years, is what he said, the trees are cut or taken down because they don't bring much fruit. So they are available, and the transport logistics, that's a bit more difficult. The problem is, though, that the wood is full of sugar, so that it rots very, very quickly, and so that is a problem. But I think when processing at decent sites and close to the resources, and at the same time, as I already said, are socio-economically make sense near the developing countries, then that will be a big advantage. That, I'm sure, is a very difficult point that we don't or can't really talk about much more, but it's something we must talk about. The next point that we should maybe talk about here, that was also talked about before, that the wood is not like the wood that we know. There's not the same features throughout the stem or the trunk. It has different features. The density of the wood, as we would call it, in the trunk on the outside is fairly high. It looks a bit like this or like this.
Sondern hat sehr unterschiedliche Eigenschaften. Die Dichte des Holzes, wie wir sagen, ist im Stamm außen relativ hoch.
We have here what we normally call the rind or the bark, and towards the inside, the trunk, the material becomes lighter and lighter, and also up to the top it becomes lighter. And that is what Mr. Möhringer said, that for sawmill technology is a big challenge. Mr. Möhringer, maybe you could say something about how we can deal with this, the different densities in the different parts in the sawmill, and how we can consider the use in the sawmill. Or maybe you might say, no, that cannot be possible, but we'd have to use it for other options.
Vielleicht dazu zu kommen, zu sagen, das kann ich überhaupt nicht für Schnittholz verwenden, sondern für andere Zwecke.
Well, I see the main challenge in how can I recognize the different parts of the trunk in time and work with them, also together with the other systems producers. How can we develop a complete system for processing this kind of wood? The question is, how can I measure the density in the trunk? That has to do with the humidity, of course, and we do not know about the humidity, and it can also differ greatly. So we need to be able to recognize the density without the humidity, and then to be able to decide on a trunk very quickly which part of the trunk will I use to cut out a part of material, which would be massive enough to be used as a board. If we presume, and the study that we did, and the people that we asked, there are certain experiences, so we might be talking about that later. I personally would expect that we would have maybe 30% or a third for cut wood, that can be used then. It would then be processed further, 1/3 from the leftovers from the cut wood, could maybe then lighter material for particle board production, and 1/3 for creating energy, which we also can use or need for product development and product creation, electricity that we can then sell.
Wie
How would you see that from the particle board industry, the leftovers from the cutwood industry, or the middle light or middle heavy site, depending on which way you look at it? How would you see that? Well, we've made some tests, and it's not unusual, for example, in West Africa, to use wood in further ways. So logistics are there, and it is imaginable. And your proposal to in the core where the palm wood is very soft, maybe that can be made into pellets and be burned, and that of course is also interesting. And there have been projects, very interesting, especially from the Emirates. They wanted to gain credits there. The carbon credits they wanted to gain. Yes, these are very, very up to date, these carbon credits, just right at this moment. Yes, but you can see there are ideas there. We're already sitting here in a nice round, so I think we can do quite a lot with this. Mr. van Haas, your company also makes pellet systems. Do you see this as prepared fuels that could be used in the industry for the trade? Yes, the Wedel can also be used. If you divide it off from the core, we have a procedure that you can make quite good particle boards from that. The trunk can be cut up and chipped, and the humidity can be pressed out of that, so that out of the core of the trunk we can actually make boards. And we have already offered systems for that. So we're at a point where the complexity of the whole option can be shown here. We're talking on the one hand about the trunk, the 100 million cubic meters per year. On the other hand, we're also talking about the Wedel, which are also huge amounts, and also about the fruit itself, the fruit that we make the oil out of. That is also fibrous material and energetically usable. So the potential is really enormously high. As high as the potential is, that's as high as the challenges are too. And I would like to ask again, cutwood production on the one hand, on the other hand, particle board. What about plywood? Southeast Asia is a plywood region where you have a lot of plywood, where a lot of it is used. Veneer boards, carpenter boards. Mr. van Haas? Well, you'd already talked about the trunk. It has a very high density in the lower area, and that can be debarked easily and can be used, and it has been tried out industrially already. And then the middle wood for veneers, and maybe fiber boards could be glued on, or for wooden veneer. So that would also be quite a good heavyweight board. And we had a client who exported such boards. Maybe just a quick in between. It's quite a good product here. Particle boards, board panel. Here's a principle of the medium area. Lightweight. Lightweight is also a topic for the Ligna. Here there is a density of the wood of 300 kilograms per cubic meter, or even lower, so that it's a very light but very, very stable material. That is something that at the moment in very small numbers is being dealt with and is being imported, but only individual containers to Germany. So maybe we should talk a little bit about products a little bit more concretely. It's already been talked about a whole range of products. Maybe could you say it again? These products, as you've already said at the Ligna, have a raw material with a density that's very high. We have 3 density areas. 3 are usable in the classic production way that we have already. The lightweight panels is possible, so we can throw the ball back and forth to each other. We would look about. We would deal with the inside and the outer parts, and the densities would be like the fir wood we have here, which is used for interior construction and as supporting elements and so on. And what is also very popular in Middle Europe is cross-laminated timber products, cross-laminated products. A very interesting product here again with palm wood would be the sustainability, the strength. If you look at the positive aspects by gluing in a new way, then you have a very good product which can be used in many ways, and industrial flat building and so on.
Positiven Eigenschaften durch Kreuzverleihen kombinieren, haben Sie natürlich ein sehr, sehr gutes Produkt, was vielseitig verwendbar ist im industriellen Wohnungsbau, Wohnungsbau generell und so weiter. We
also, of course, have products that are like the classic glued products, the glulam products and so on. That is all possible. What has to be taken into consideration with these products, which I have already mentioned before, we cannot not look at this, is when using it. It's also very important what it looks like and what it feels like, because the client also buys with his eyes, especially if it's being used in the interior construction area. It has to look good. And I'm sure in combination we will be able to, or we will have to generate products that, combined with other wood materials or kinds of wood, will or can be turned into sensible market products. Ms. Möhringer, if we look at large areas of wood, then cut wood that's used for building, right up to do-it-yourself, it's always cut wood. It's not really processed further. Do you think that kind of product, construction, solid wood for building reasons, could be a possibility? Do you think that would be able to something that we could produce? Yes, well, the fibre has very good stability. There are building products where the looks aren't that important. So, for example, in roof construction, then it's really the function that is important of the material, and that could be very suitable. You can see it with the samples here. You can see how difficult it is because when you cut it, it does sort of open up, and will have the same effect. And we cannot get as smooth a surface, and that is a bit of a bother when it's visible wood, when you're trying to plane it. But as I said, for roof construction and so on, then it could be a very interesting material to use.
Wenn sehr viel Potenzial sein kann, dann kann es ein interessanter Werkstoff sein.
Yeah, well, please carry on. I find this very interesting. I'm just listening to you all and learning a lot. Well, one product that I and others keep thinking of, for example, doors. You mentioned floors, but interior doors are very light normally, so they open and shut easily. They're not solid. They have a certain smell. And this product, would that be an option? Do we need that many doors in the world? Would that make sense? Well, it would be an option because of the stability. Also for the doors, we have that kind of door with paper honeycomb, with lightweight construction, and so it could make sense to use the product here. Covered with suitable varnishing and coatings made of plastic and so on, then we could create nice doors. We have one advantage here: a honeycomb door and honeycomb boards. We have no problem on the edges here. We have a covered edge that can be banded on straight that could be a good advantage, especially when I make doors. I have formats. I could put slightly or use slightly heavier parts of the plywood on the edge, where the bands are then put on, or where the fittings are then attached. Well, on products, well, I find this very interesting. Before the products are able to be made, what does have to happen before that can happen, before we can start producing? What kind of innovations do we need? What is the status now? What is necessary? Well, I think I can say for all of us here, from Solid Wood's side, the technology is there. There are some problems with the contents of the wood. You need special saws, but that's something that can be solved. We're all capable of building adaptable machines or adapted machines, and there are investors, I'm sure. There's also support from the government and financing. They like going in for exotic projects, and if we can find a solution here and get some more support from official sides, I think it would be we could be fairly quick in finding solutions here. Dr. von Haas, necessary for this slight hesitance, how can that be changed into a trend we're looking forward? Well, as Professor Fruwald already said, energetic production, that individual companies work together, maybe some governmental support, that could help us here. We have to process integratively. That's a good point. Integrated using of all parts, maybe not just the trunk on its own, maybe the wheel and the fruit and so on. If we look at the energy as well, that's very important. And the question is then, of course, the size of such procedures. If we think of boards, and I'm very baffled and honour your optimism for these projects. Well, if you have particle boards, they're normally very large projects. But on the other hand, we also have the possibility for the solid wood range. Maybe even just with smaller projects, small and medium-sized sawmills, that here we can have smaller energy production plants. But if we have the potential on the one hand, and then maybe a further developing market on the other hand, then we'll have large projects again, and that is the way it is globally with other materials as well. Also with rubber wood, even though we have far less with rubber wood, it has gone through a fantastic victory run here. And I would like to come back to one point here. We've maybe not looked at it enough. The environmental aspect, if I may say something here again, please. It's very clear that the oil palm plantations are on former tropical woods areas, also sometimes on farming areas, but it used to be rainforest areas, and Mr. Matan said it in the interview. We do need to give something back to the environment from what we took away from it. I'm saying it this pathetically, deliberately. If we, here as an example, look at carbon dioxide management, today, as we already said today, it's something that's very, very up to date here. We want to reduce CO2, and that's something that's being discussed greatly today. If I see the potential that is in these oil palms, only in the trunks, that is several 100 million of credits of CO2 per year. Tons, 100 million tons of CO2 per year. So really quite a lot of the emission in the countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, Nigeria and so on. So here a lot is possible, a lot can be done for climate protection, that's also environmental protection. I don't want to repeat, or we can't give back what we took, but we could do this, and Mr. Matan already said to relieve the natural forest by another material that comes from these areas, and amount-wise it's much more that's actually coming from there, to relieve the area. I think that's a very important aspect, and also to give us the kind of permission for these activities. And it's possible, but it also has to be socially possible.
Aber es muss ja auch gesellschaftlich machbar sein.
Dr. Möhringer, maybe I can pass this question on to you. There is a tension between chances, risks, environmental protection and so on, and the costs that could come up, and also innovations that have to be invented. How does this tension feel like? What does it feel like? What are the steps you're taking now? Sorry, I didn't quite get that. Well, the question is, all the sustainability and so on that has to be taken into consideration. How does this influence your ideas, your innovations? How do you think, or what do you think about it? Or is this a discussion? No, sustainability is, of course, a big topic. It has to do with the products that we are dealing with, the customers are wanting. Our challenge is, how can I use the product effectively to optimize the value of the product? That's a nice thing. There's no waste here. All the trunk is used, but what kind of value in the chain can I use? What are the most valuable parts, and how can I fillet them out? And then, of course, we have the question of sustainability. How are we dealing with our own innovations and developments, the machines that we build, that they are permanent, that they're not throwaway articles. Also with electronical upgrades. Of course, normally you have machine cycles that are that have to be changed, but we want something that's long-term and usable and sustainable for the market, and with its own philosophy. At Vining, is it the same? Well, sustainability is a very important topic for us, as Mr. Möhringer said. We work with the material, a very nice material, a lovely material. We process up to almost 100% of the material. With our machines, we try to optimize in such a way that we get the maximum, the best possible optimization out of it. Optimize the material as far up as possible, and so the palm oil product should be the same, and give it a value that is not only as a producer of oil, but as something higher for further products that are recognized by the society. We have to watch out. We can't just say we'll do it, but we also have to open up so that the product gets a new face, new look, so that in comparison to the bad image it has because of the deforesting, there will be a positive counterweight to that. And that, of course, for us is generally, because we're working worldwide with lots of products, it's a very interesting topic, and we're regularly looking into it. Well, we can hear that it's a very interesting topic, but also a challenge. Wood from the oil palm, any use? What are the next steps? What must happen?
Schritte, was sollte, was muss passieren und was unternehmen Sie als nächstes?
Well, for me, the question was not at all existential. What is to be used? I never saw the question mark, actually. The next steps, well, I think we've seen quite a lot. The question is, how can one start, or what are the next steps? Should we do make big steps with big plants, big systems with certain product lines? Or is it better to make smaller steps? It really has a lot to do with how, I should say, the owners of the oil palm trees, plantations, how they react. And maybe I should have a quick look at this. In the oil palm business, if I may talk about it like that, it's a very large business. There are oil palm owners that have very many thousands hectares of land. They're often big societies, They have nothing against investment. So the large areas are good for them. If they can be convinced that they have a potential here, an economical and an environmental potential and a workplace potential, then I think even big products will be possible. That is, small projects shouldn't fall out of sight. Small projects can also be started, so in between or maybe as a starter. But it is important to get the people together now within a short period of time, in the next few months or maybe the next years. The owners of the palm trees, the technology people who are sitting here, they know how to do it. And not to forget the question of the products. That means that we have to involve the market. That's not easy, but that is possible. And we have to then also get the governments to join in, talking about locations, environmental politics, social politics and so on. That's very important. The governments and the oil plantation owners know how. The community, we all have to get together at one table and say what is possible and what not and what we're going to do. I think that is the way. Well, we did that. We weren't sitting at a table, but in a very nice round. Thank you for all the information, for the interesting discussion. Wood for the oil palm, one of the future topics here at the Ligna 2013, which has been discussed here. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope we found some interesting topics here for you. And tune in again tomorrow at the Ligna, 11 o'clock.